Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody listening live to today's lightning interview. Today we're here with Dr. Gwendolyn Stripling, artificial and intelligence and machine learning content developer at Google Cloud, and one of the authors of Low Code AI, a practical project-driven introduction to machine learning. Today we're going to be talking about low code and no code AI. Let's see. And just as a quick reminder, and I'll be touching on this a little more at the end, that we do have a number of upcoming events. We will have, of course, ODSC East coming up in April alongside the Data Engineering Summit. We also have a number of webinars and other interviews coming up soon, so be sure to check those out. And with that, I would like to formally introduce Gwendolyn.
Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Happy to be here. Thank you, Alex, for the introduction.
Thank you very much for joining us. Would you like to tell us any more about yourself that I didn't touch on?
Wow.
Or what you do at Google?
Well, actually, I'm so glad that you say that. I'm here not on behalf of Google. I'm here in my own personal capacity, speaking about Michael Abel and my book. And so more about me. Well, I have developed a few courses on LinkedIn Learning. One is called Introduction to Neural Networks. I have a course that's coming out in, I believe, later this spring or early summer. And that course, it's called Advanced Natural Language Processing with using Python. And I guess other things about me, I began my career as a systems engineer at CNN. I worked at startups. I founded a startup. I was in school way too long, and because I just love learning. So into the corporate world and just fell in love with trying to help solve problems. So I love learning. I like solving problems. And I believe in democratizing AI and ML.
Great, all very good causes, and I think we'll be touching on some of that democratization later on. But first question, to go right into the topic of this, of what is low code and no code AI?
So low code AI, it refers to the use of platforms or tools that allow users to build and deploy AI models without any coding, right? Or minimal coding, rather, in this case, with low code. These platforms often provide some visual interfaces, some drag and drop functionality, but low code basically means that you are able to build, train, and deploy a machine learning model with just a few lines of code. Now, when we compare that to no code, what that is essentially you're able to build and train and deploy that same machine learning model without writing any code. And that is very powerful in terms of democratization, because no code takes, this concept of no code by enabling users to create these applications. And these platforms, these auto ML platforms, they abstract away the technical complexities of AI development, and this allows users to focus on defining business logic and leveraging ML capabilities. So through these intuitive interfaces. So essentially, no code is basically, in my opinion, you can focus more on the use case and getting the data, and then you can begin to baseline your metrics without writing a single line of code. That's low code. No code. That's no code AI. It's, let me just say, as a caveat, it is early here for me. I think I'm
Mhm.
the earliest one on the call this morning, but so forgive my no code, low code mix up. Next question, Alex.
All right. Well, on the note of low code and no code AI being able to allow others to use AI, what inspired you to write a book on this topic in particular, and why do you believe it's such an important topic and skill to have?
So the inspiration for writing a book on low code AI stemmed from, or and no code, stemmed from like the recognition of a growing need, to democratize access to AI technologies. Many individuals and organizations, particularly those outside of traditional tech fields, they face barriers to adopting AI due to the complexity of development and deployment. And so, by exploring the potential of no code and low code platforms, we aim to empower a broader audience to harness the power of AI and drive innovation across various industries.
Great, very helpful, and I'm sure this will indeed get more people to engage in AI. So, how can these forms of AI make AI more inclusive as a whole?
That is a great question, Alex. I believe that no code and low code AI democratizes access to AI technologies by removing the requirement for extensive programming skills, right?
Mhm.
That's like the first thing. But when you do that, when you remove that requirement for extensive programming skills, you open up inclusivity. It opens up opportunities for individuals from diverse backgrounds, including business professionals, domain experts, and non-technical users, to participate in AI development and implementation. I, by lowering these barriers to entry, these platforms facilitate collaboration and innovation. And for me, and for I think it's for Michael as well. This ensures that there's a wider range of perspectives and talents that can contribute to AI driven solutions.
Great. So, with low and no code AI, what are some examples you've seen of people succeeding with it?
I I'll give you a couple of example or use excuse me examples, and
Mm.
also one use case. I do some work with nonprofits, and I have been a huge proponent of using no code solutions to do predictive analytics, right? And that has been well received.
Mm.
Um, I think some examples in terms of use cases, I've been thinking about, education, for example. Um, no code AI platforms, can be used to teach fundamental concepts of machine learning. And because if you take that coding piece away when you're teaching machine learning concepts, and you can focus on the business case and the data, and then as you're walking them through this journey of machine learning, rather than focusing on the code, you're focusing on the process and the knowledge. And I think that, in education, and this will broaden participation in the STEM fields if we can take that coding piece away from it initially, because it can be very scary for those who are just coming to it for the first time.
Mm.
Um, Another use case would be healthcare. Low code AI tools, can enable healthcare professionals to develop predictive models for patient outcome or disease diagnosis, without relying on specialized data science expertise. And I think that can improve healthcare accessibility and quality. Um, I mentioned the nonprofit earlier. One of the things that the use case there is that they had limited technical resources, right? You know, they didn't have a data analyst, they didn't have a data science expert or a machine learning engineer, right? But with AutoML, their domain expert could actually perform machine learning, could actually solve machine learning use cases. And that was very, very huge and very, very valuable. So those are some examples of how no code and low code AI are being used to make AI more inclusive.
Great. Yeah, I'm biased in here that I'm very excited, especially in healthcare. I think that's where we're going to see AI saving lives. So I'm glad to see that even those without, data science expertise being able to use AI for that. So looking forward to that. So,
Yes.
you mentioned AutoML. So on the topic of tools, you mentioned using AutoML, BigQuery, ML, scikit-learn, and Keras for low-code AI solutions. Can you explain a couple of high-level differences between these tools and why you chose to focus on these in particular?
Right. So, I've purchased a lot of machine learning books, and that inspired me to actually want to write my own.
Mhm.
Because Michael and I, we talked about our philosophy of, again, democratization and inclusivity. And so what we realized was that there are three ways, four now with generative AI, but there are actually three ways to do machine learning. One is with automated machine learning, BigQuery machine learning, scikit-learn slash and Keras with custom coding. So the differences between those four are um, with automated machine learning, the AutoML platform automates the process of model selection, hyperparameter tuning, and feature engineering. And this is making it accessible for users without extensive machine learning expertise. And as I said earlier, you're provided with this very user-friendly interface for building and deploying your models. BigQuery is a tool from Google that allows users to build and deploy machine learning models um, within the BigQuery environment. But the key here is that if you know SQL, if you have a data analyst who knows SQL or data scientist who's using SQL, they don't have to learn Python to do machine learning. They can actually use SQL in BigQuery to build, train, and deploy their models. So they don't have to change their language base. So scikit-learn and Keras are basically what I consider custom coding, right? Where scikit-learn is a popular machine learning library in Python, providing a wide range of algorithms and tools for traditional machine learning tasks. It's well suited for users who are comfortable with Python programming and who want flexibility and control over their models. And Keras is actually one of my favorites. It's a high-level neural network API. It is written in Python, and it's capable of running on top of TensorFlow or and other ML packages as well, or platforms. What Keras does, it simplifies the process of building deep learning models And so if you want to do a quick prototype or even in production, you can actually build a Keras deep learning model in 6 lines of code. And for me, that's so exciting. Now, Keras does offer the Keras sequential API, which is the one where you can actually build a model in 6 lines of code. And it also offers the Keras functional API for those who really want to go in and customize everything. So those are the tools. And why we chose these tools is because, well, they cover a spectrum of user expertise, right? We have use cases from beginners in our book with no coding experience, and then we have use cases for intermediate users, and we have use cases for those who want more advanced, who are comfortable rather with more advanced coding.
Great. Thank you for elaborating on those. So another question on the book is, you advocate for a data first and use case driven approach in low code AI. Could you elaborate on what this approach entails and how it benefits those new to machine learning and AI?
So our approach, the reason why our approach emphasizes or starts with a clear understanding of, data and use cases, because that is how it should be and is in the real world. Um, there is um, there's a tendency for this disconnect between the business user who has the use case and the tech folks who have to implement that use case. And so what we thought was that we could help people by starting with a clear understanding of the problem you're trying to solve, um, and helping them to understand that once you've identified that use case or problem, then you need to find the data that's available to address it, right? So by prioritizing the use case and understanding the data thoroughly, it helps to avoid common, pitfalls such as building models without a clear purpose or using inadequate data, which can happen quite a bit. So this approach benefits those new to ML and AI, but it also helps people who are actually in the field, who may be working with clients or customers, and who can actually say, we should actually start with the use case. And then find that data, those data sources, and then begin to then find the model that can actually fit that use case.
Mhm.
And in many machine learning books, at least in the past, did not start that way, right? You would open a machine learning book and you'd have huge, like algorithms, you'd have to know linear algebra. We're talking, about training. And so it would start with sort of the technical piece. And so that's why our book, we think, is a little different, is we're starting with a business use case. We're talking about data. And then we're saying, okay, now that you've identified your use case and your data requirements, this is the machine learning model that will work for you.
Mhm.
And then we actually help you solve it 3 different ways.
Great. Very helpful. So on the note of different sectors, in your book and before, you mentioned how machine learning models can help various sectors and industries. So which sector do you think can benefit the most from low code and no code AI the most?
You know, while all sectors can benefit from low code AI, I think industries with large amounts of data and a strong need for automation, such as finance and healthcare, may stand to gain the most. And I say that because these sectors often have complex data analysis requirements, but they may lack the resources or expertise to implement, sophisticated AI solutions. And so I think, these no code, low code AI platforms, they can empower these domain experts, right? Domain experts in finance, domain experts in healthcare, they can empower them to actually begin to work on their predictive use cases, right? Or their generative AI use cases, without requiring these extensive technical skills, and I think this will unlock significant value, um, and efficiency gains. So I think, to answer your question about which sectors, I would healthcare, right, and finance, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would have to agree with those. Whenever I'm researching topics for articles or whatnot, those two definitely pop up the most. So again, definitely looking forward to saving lives with AI.
Yes.
So on the note of implementing AI, a lot of businesses will find difficulty when it goes from development to deployment. So how can your book, Low Code AI, assist readers in not just building these models, but also effectively deploying their machine learning models?
I really, you know, I really sometimes struggle with trying to, um, explain how we connect the dots, right? How we go from a use case to deployment, because it doesn't really end there, right? That model's out there, and it's being served, via a mobile app or a website, but it's constantly monitored, right? And data is not static, data changes. And so I think our book, provides practical guidance, and talks about tools for deploying machine learning models in production environments. And I think in our book too, we actually walk you through the process. And there's a workflow in the book, in the earlier chapter, where we actually go through the machine learning workflow, and we do it in a way that talks about what you'll need to know and what tools you'll need to guide you through this process. So I think we do this by offering knowledge of the workflow, talking about the tools that are required for deployment and monitoring. And also, we also cover best practices. Um, so I think by focusing on simplicity and automation, the book, helps readers streamline the deployment process rather, and overcome challenges associated with transitioning you know, from dev to prod, and also I would say post prod, which is ML ops or monitoring. So, um, yeah, just by knowledge and best practices and talking about the workflow, education. Yes.
Great. Good to hear. So we've been speaking a bit about the tools and business side of things. So how do you see the role of traditional data scientists and machine learning engineers changing in an environment where low code and no code platforms are becoming more popular?
Hmm. I get this question quite a bit. I speak at conferences, and people will come up to me and ask me this very question. And, I have given it many cycles of reflection time. The role of traditional data scientists and machine learning engineers will change, right? I think we're seeing that now with generative AI. We're going to see it more so. But the question is, how will it change and what impact will it have on the person who's in that role and on the company itself? So as low code and no code platforms become more prevalent, I think we're going to see sort of an evolution towards more specialized tasks for people in these roles, right? Such as algorithm development, custom model tuning, and system optimization. So, for for example, AutoML is great for getting those baseline metrics, and if they're good enough and they meet the requirement, you can put them in production. But there may come a time where you want to customize that model, right? And then you're going to be using you know, those tools such as, scikit-learn or Keras or PyTorch or TensorFlow to actually customize your machine learning model. And there could be many reasons for that, right? For performance, for accuracy, that's going to require specialized knowledge. And so that traditional data scientist, machine learning person is not going anywhere. That person will be needed. The question is, where in that funnel of development of the workflow will they be needed the most? I think on the custom side. Um, and I think these professionals, may find themselves serving as mentors and consultants, where they're lending their domain expertise um, to business users and domain experts, and helping them leverage AI, the tools effectively. So um, there will be a change, right? In my opinion, but I think a welcome change as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen regardless. There's going to be a change, but it's not a matter of, losing or taking away jobs as much as it is just adjusting and
Mm,
allowing humans to do what they do best, which is creativity, customization, listening to people
mhm.
and making those changes. Um, and, we'll see how it plays out in the near future, but I'll go in optimistic as well.
Yes.
But so you mentioned simplicity with some of these platforms. So, how do these platforms strike a healthy balance between simplicity for the wider audience and also being complex enough for robust and scalable AI solutions? Is there a compromise between power or capability that you've seen?
So there, I think the answer really is about the use case, right? I think it depends. Um, Low code and no code platforms do strive to maintain a balance between simplicity for non technical users and the complexity required for robust AI solutions. And I think they achieve this simplicity through interactive and intuitive interfaces, pre-built components, pre-trained models, automation and integration, while also providing options for customization. So and integration. So I think while there may be some trade-offs in terms of power and flexibility compared to traditional development approaches, I think these platforms first prioritize accessibility and ease of use. But in this prioritization, they are not discounting complexity. Many of the vendors who offer AutoMail platforms allow you to actually customize. You can start out being AutoML, but they allow you to, even within AutoML, to customize those parameters, right? They also offer notebook solutions where you can actually go in and do the coding yourself. So I think they are maintaining a balance between simplicity for the wider audience and the complexity required for a robust and scalable solution.
Great. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of these tools you can be as simple or as complicated as you want them to be as well. You can always make things more complex if needed. But we've been, you mentioned use cases a bit. Can you share some maybe unique success stories where low code or no code AI platforms were used specifically by non-technical individuals or teams to solve some real world problems?
So in full transparency, my work has been with nonprofits and startups in my current role. And one of the things that I would like to see more of is data on success stories for AutoML. If you were to, search for AutoML, you see that all of the major vendors offer these solutions, and they have success stories from their customers on their websites, right? I can't speak directly to that, so I would encourage folks to search for that information on their own to kind of see how other companies who are actually using this, right? So there are some success stories, but I can't speak to that directly. But what I can do is give you examples of those use cases that these customers are using in their success of AutoML and no code and low code AI. One example is a marketing team using AutoML, to optimize ad targeting and increase conversion rates. Another example is a healthcare provider, leveraging a no-code AI tool
Hmm.
to analyze patient data and improve treatment outcomes. Another example is a manufacturing company using a low-code platform to implement predictive maintenance and reduce equipment downtime. So those are three that I can share with you uh, as examples.
Well, as a non-data scientist, maybe I should look into the marketing side of things a bit. That does sound helpful.
Yes.
Um, so we've spoken about education a little bit, but as these platforms become more popular, how do you see the role of traditional education pathways in tech, such as computer science degrees, evolving? Do you think that we're moving towards a more experience-based, portfolio-driven era for tech jobs as opposed to focusing on degrees and education?
Hmm. There was an article yesterday. I don't know if folks have had a chance to read it. I forget which online publication, but there was an article about there was a survey that said that a certain percentage of college graduates aren't using their degrees um, uh, in their profession that they're in now. And so, what does that say about our educational decisions? Are we should we all be tech majors and work in tech? Well, possibly not, given our environment right now. Um, should we be finance majors? Like, where do we like? What is education going to look like with generative AI, with no code AI, with low code AI? Um, and is the computer science degree, um, does it still have value? Well, I think it depends, right? I think the rise of low code and no code platforms may lead to a shift towards more experience based and portfolio-driven learning approaches in tech education. But I also believe that while traditional computer science degrees remain valuable for that foundational knowledge, I do believe that practical experience with real world tools is really going to be increasingly important for staying competitive in the job market. You know, one thing that I would encourage people to do is to, in terms of their tech journey, is to always remember that we will always need translators, right? We'll always need translators. And what do I mean by that? We'll always need people who understand the business requirement and people who understand the technical components that are required to implement that requirement. In that gap here is where we will always need people. And generative AI can help with that, obviously, fill that gap, but we'll always need people to kind of be those translators. So I really feel that the tech education will be evolving to include that traditional computer science background, data analytics degree, but I think it also will include more acknowledgement of the need for understanding business requirements.
Mhm. Great. So it's less not needing these degrees and more so just changing how we look at them and the outcomes expected from them, possibly.
Yes,
Great.
yes.
Good to hear. Also, I know you have a time limit, so we have
Okay.
about 8 minutes left for your questions, but we only have a couple left. So,
Okay.
so AI will always have risks, of course, but are there increased risks of bias with more democratization of AI? And if so, excuse me, how are these platforms addressing these concerns?
So that's an interesting question. Because what we're saying is that if we're allowing people without machine learning knowledge or skills to be able to build, train, and deploy machine learning models without writing a single line of code, do they understand the components of AI fairness? Do they understand explainable AI? Um, are they looking at, you know, the components that will sort of trigger a red flag for someone who has more knowledge about a data set, for example? Those are risks, definitely. But you know, some of these platforms, they address these concerns through built-in safeguards. There are fairness checks. There's responsible AI practices, and there's also explainability features. And by explainability features, I mean where these are tools and techniques that help us understand how and why machine learning models arrive at their decisions. Because machine learning models are like black boxes, right? So explainability is crucial for building trust, identifying biases, and improving model performance, if you will. Um, but there definitely are risks associated with the democratization of AI. But I think there are risks associated anyway. So I don't think democratizing it will inadvertently, how should I phrase this? There always will be risks and challenges of fairness in AI. And we just have to continue to educate everyone in responsible AI best practices. and how to ensure fairness in machine learning development, regardless of their skill level.
Great. Good to hear that. All right. Last question on my end is, looking ahead, do you think that low code and no code AI will affect the technology industry's structure? For instance, do you think we'll see a significant growth in the freelance workforce, or do you think it's just going to be a shift of the type of roles that already exist within traditional tech companies?
I definitely see a rise, hopefully in a more diverse workforce. Um, I I see more roles focused on, yeah, well, let me take a step back. I think the world has changed since generative AI, right? Like everyone is trying to understand how this is going to impact, you know, roles in technology. Um, I think generative AI, no code AI, and low code AI will all lead to a more diverse workforce because these approaches lower the barrier to entry. Um, I think freelancers and small businesses are going to benefit because they're going to find tremendous opportunities to deliver AI solutions without an extensive technical budget or technical resources. Um, so, Alex, could you repeat like a part of that question, the last part? I'm trying to make sure I answer every component
Hmm.
of it. Alex?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Great. Um,
No, no,
oh,
I asked you to repeat, like,
I'm sorry.
if you could
Um,
repeat the last part of the question. I
sure.
wanted to make sure I answered it thoroughly.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Do you think there will be new types of roles within traditional tech companies?
I do. I just, um, like everyone, um, it's evolving and it's hard to identify what those roles will be. But I will end with this. Um, when people ask me about generative AI and no code AI and low code AI and, you know, about their jobs and their job roles, I say this analogy. Years ago, we had lamplighters, right? We had people that would come by and they would light the lamps every single night at dusk in every major city throughout the world. And then, with the advent of electricity, those lamplighters were simply gone. There was no need. But in place of the lamplighter's role, there was a new job category, and that was called electrician.
Hmm.
And the knowledge of the electrician and the amount of dollar per hour for that electrician was much higher than the lamplighter. So I think that what we're going to be seeing is more knowledge is needed to maintain what we are looking ahead and sort of I'm kind of rambling here, but let me just end by saying this, Alex. We will have electricians. There are no more lamplighters. Electricians will always be a skill that is needed. And
Mhm.
I think that if you are a coder, if you are a machine learning engineer, you're a data scientist, there's always going to be a place. It's just a matter of where that place will be. in my opinion, right? That's what I believe.
I would agree with that, and that is good to hear.
And I'm just going to put my book up in front of my shirt here before I go. All the proceeds go to charity. I just want people to know that. So Michael and I have 2 nonprofits that each of us support. So there it is. I don't know
There
if
you
you
go.
can see it. Okay, there.
Right there. There we go. Good.
Thanks.
Even more reason to check out the book. You heard it first. It's going to charity. So, and it sounds very helpful, whether you are not experienced in AI or maybe you've got some experience in the field. It's relevant if you're interested in AI. Well, Gwendolyn, thank you so much. This has been an excellent interview. I'm very grateful that you were able to chat with me for a bit. And yeah, to everyone still in the audience, Gwendolyn will be able to address some of these questions in the comments later on. And I think that's it for me today.
Well, thank you, Alex. Thank you to the Open Data Science team. You all are awesome. I am so looking forward to ODSC East, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, everybody. Bye now.